Hello and welcome to another episode of HR Nightmares. We love it when the ladies get together and we do episodes, the three of us, but we absolutely love it when we've got a special guest. And today is in fact special because Beth has been trying to get this guest on for quite some time. We think we know it all most days about HR, but it's always nice when we can learn something from a fellow HR colleague. And so that's who we have today. I want to welcome Ashley Trossman, who is a senior HR manager with GE Hitachi Nuclear. They make all kinds of new nuclear energy things that are compact. And anyway, they're doing good for the world. Go check out their website. But let me just turn it over to you. Before I do, we've got Amy Conway here and Beth Looney.
Hello.
They are experts from Leith HR Group. I'm Lisa Leith, the owner of Leith HR Group and Chief People Officer for a little company with a funny name called Vanica. And so we're here to talk about all things personality and communication style and behavior assessments today. And so I think we've got, between the four of us, a ton of experience with different kinds of assessments. We're going to hear from the new authority on a new assessment that neither one of the three of us have ever heard about. And so really excited to dig into that. But why don't we just turn it over to you and have you introduce yourself to the audience?
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. I'm Ashley Trossman, as she mentioned, and I've been working at GE for 17 years, all in HR. Currently, I have a dual role where I am a HR manager for our engineering organization, which we just surpassed 1,000 people in our engineering organization,
Awesome.
so that's huge.
That's huge.
And then I also do some back office HR operations stuff, orientation, data, reporting, making sure everybody's profiles are correct as far as their job information and things like that. So they've got me in a few different things, but mostly HR management, client support.
So you just received a badge. I saw that on LinkedIn. Can
I
you
did.
explain what that is and how you got that?
Yes, I will. So part of my HR client support role means increasing the effectiveness of our people leaders, which is what we call it in GE. And so they sent me to a training session where we learn about social styles. And it's through a company called Tracom. They're the ones that have developed this. They've been around since the 60s, and so they've been using a lot of data all the way from the 60s to understand people's behaviors at work. It's really not their personality, it's their behaviors at work. And they've compartmentalized these behaviors into 4 very distinct behavior patterns. One of them is driver, which is your typical manager or leader. These are the folks that want results, they want to move forward fast, they want action. That opposite is the amiable. And so those are the folks that are really relationship driven. Personal security is really important to them. They want everybody to make nice and be friends. And then the other 2 are also polar opposites. So you have the expressive, which is what I am. They are your most enthusiastic folks, high emotion, both positive and negative. And they're the ones that are spontaneous. They want fun. They want excitement. And they are very emotional by nature. And then their opposite is the analytical, which are the more quiet folks, data-driven. They're the ones that are going to be a little bit on the wallflower side. But what's really important for them is to be right, to be correct, and to move slowly in the spirit of accuracy.
Yeah. I mean, overall, when you say the descriptors, it's really interesting because, while the names are very different, the descriptions really are very similar to what a DISC profile would be. I do a training that's similar, and I've kind of renamed all of those into our own thing because I'm not DISC certified. So just making sure that
I'm not DISC certified, but I just use DISC.
I just had a DISC workshop for 2 days.
Sometimes I do DISC too. It depends on the client. But so we're familiar with a lot of these different styles, and there's some common things, I'm sure, in there. So what would you say, if you're familiar with DISC, are the big differences between DISC and now this one that seems to be addressing more the behavioral and social style?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Amy, because there is a very distinct difference. So DISC is understanding, and those that are similar to DISC, understanding your own personal style. The thing about the Tracom Social Styles is it is not really understanding of only your own personal style, but it's really being able to assess other people's style and exercising what they call versatility in being versatile to be able to let go of your own personal behaviors in order to be able to be versatile to build a bond with somebody that has a different kind of personality or set of behaviors than you do.
So when you're trying to ascertain, like if I'm managing Lisa,
Yep.
would Lisa take that test as well, so I would know what she is, or through the training, then I can kind of determine what she is?
You got it.
Okay.
Yep. I think it is great for everybody to do something like this to understand what their personal style is. But the thing about the social style model is really to know yourself, but to also know others. And that's actually kind of what the thing is you know others, you adapt your style for others. And it's proven to make more successful and effective leaders because you're constantly adapting your style in order to be able to build the bond with somebody else and essentially be able to win personally because you're winning the relationship, you're winning kind of what the situation is.
Something that I love about what you said, I think we've all taken a ton of assessments ourselves from a self-awareness or even just to trial it for our organizations. But like GE invested in you to go get formally trained to administer the assessments and then also like help do the editorial on it for your people leaders and the other team members at GE. So like tactically, how are you getting out there and how's this influencing the way that people are now leading their other people? Like your supervisors on the front line are your greatest asset and your greatest liability.
Exactly.
So how does this help you kind of sway them on the pendulum towards greatest asset?
That's all about people leader training. So, and that's what we're going to be using this for. And it's actually what's interesting is the whole social style training. It's just one little piece of a full week-long frontline leader train the trainer that I went to. And it just makes up one half of one day, believe it or not. The other stuff is coaching and learning about how to lead effective teams and be able to coach others on best practices. So it really was a part of a larger thing. But the reason why they sent me to here is because I'm going to be conducting training of all of our people leaders through the summer and through the fall and ongoing in order to make sure that GE has the best and brightest and most effective people leaders as possible using training like this.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think kind of the key of what you said is like the flexibility and the adaptability piece. And that's where a lot of times we hit a wall. It's like we take the survey, we know what we are, but then actually having the self-awareness and exercising some different skills and flexing in. I mean, I remember myself, I'm an S, right? But the stereotypical of that style would be like this quiet dove, that can't handle like going into business meetings and saying the hard stuff. And it is so funny because I'm like, I have no problem with any of that. But I think it's because I've done enough of these years of assessments that I know that's my style, but I allow others to be their style. And I no longer am offended by Lisa's style of the high D. And I used to be like young in my career, I found people with that very dominant style to be so abrasive. And I like could not do anything but be personally offended when they came in. And now I'm right there with them. So I think that's where it is. And I love all these profiles, but it just takes years and years and people that actually like take the time and build some of their own growth and development. And that's where we always have a hard time.
The social style assessment actually is not only about learning what your behavior style is and being able to assess what other behavior styles are, but it's how to exercise versatility, which is exactly what you're talking about. You have your own personal style, but you're versatile enough to where if you're an amiable person based on kind of, what I mentioned, but the piece but I'll go into a room and I'll say what I need to say and I will have an opinion. A traditional amiable person may be not that, but an amiable person with high versatility is that.
Yeah.
And that's what the Tracom model kind of does, is that it teaches you how to assess your own versatility and increase your versatility. Because you can't really help what your profile is, the way you behave, but you can help how versatile you are within that profile and be able to adapt to others.
Yeah, that's really good.
I
Like
love-
getting to that, being
Yeah.
actualized and working on it and
Totally.
building your capacity there.
Sometimes some of the clients that I deal with tend to be smaller. And I think that sometimes they've asked me in the past, oh, we want to do some recruiting and we want to have people do these assessments to influence our hiring decisions. What do you think about that?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I've got my own opinion on it, but I want to
Yeah.
hear what you think.
So what you're talking about is unconscious bias, and it's all about wanting to hire people that are like yourself, or that people that you think that you would like, and it's a sticky road to be on, because if you do that, then you impact, diversity and, inclusion of all kinds of different folks and different personalities and different styles. And so I think learning what your own style is and also being able to assess what other folks are and being able to also appreciate, like, for example, an Amiable has a seat at the table. And so does somebody that's a driver, and so does somebody that's an expressive, and so does somebody that's an analytical. If everybody was one,
It's going to be a stool that tips.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. So it's that diversity that also it teaches you the things that an analytical person brings to the table and what a driver brings to the table. And you need all of it to be successful.
Well, I don't like the doing those assessments for hiring decisions, because I think there's also sometimes, I think when people are wanting the job so badly, I think that they're skewing how they're answering those assessments. They're trying to preconceive what they should answer so that they'll get hired.
I think you're right. There is so much, though, that bias. I mean, Lisa and I had this. I was taking over a client for Lisa, and Lisa and I are exact opposites. And this is a client that uses DISC, and so they have DISC assessments. Do you remember that? And I think the CEO was concerned that, at first he was like, oh, and not concerned in a bad way, but just like, this is different. I'm used to my HR leader being the same style as I am, right? And that's how it was. And I think it was great growth for him to have opposite styles, both of us strong in our own right and have different strengths and different abilities. And I think it was such a good growing couple of years for him to have a different style sitting at the table next to
Totally.
him.
Yeah. I mean, that is how you grow, is that you learn to work with so many different styles, learn to assess what somebody's style is, and then also adapt. I mean, think about the best leaders that the best managers, the best, the best in the business. They're the ones that are have high versatility. They can adapt their style to others. They make everybody feel welcome, everybody feel included and comfortable, but they still get the thing done that they need to get done.
But also is a smart thing for a leader just to recognize that they have limitations and weaknesses, and that somebody else's style might really fill that gap.
Fill the gap.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And make you a stronger leader in turn.
Can I tell you a funny story?
Wasn't there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, our executive leadership team at Vanica, we sit around after our quarterly offsites and we give each other feedback, okay? And this is one thing I want you to start doing. This is one thing that annoys me about you. And
Oh my God, I would die. I would absolutely hate that.
I feel like you've told
you
us
actually
this
say
before. The
annoys
need
me?
a knee.
Yeah,
Is this your
this time-
need a knee moment?
this time we used the word annoy, and I was just like mortified, okay? And so the CFO tells me, Lisa, what annoys me about you is your love for TTI Success Insights. Which is like literally very similar to what you're describing, okay? So I love TTI Success Insights, and I'm here to say assessments are great. Not only just from the self-awareness perspective, but knowing your folks and kind of reading through their profiles. And then a lot of times these vendors, whoever you get your assessment of choice from, they'll actually produce like a comparison report or some kind of like coaching report and literally give you tactics to work more effectively together. The one thing that I love about TTI Success Insights is that you can do a job benchmark. So let's say you've got a recruiting, you're recruiting for a new job, you've got a hiring manager. I would literally say, okay, Beth, hiring manager, take this 120 questions. If the job could speak, here's what it would say about the skills, the competencies, the behaviors, the communication style that we need in this job. And so you would fill that out. The job is speaking to me. Okay, now I'm down to the last couple of candidates and I have them take it. And then you can run a gap report and literally skip through all 26 pages and go to the last page, and it gives me like red, yellow, green. So I can just figure out like, where should I dig more deeper into this person? Like if they're not, it says like very poor fit in whatever, like sense of urgency or the top 2 behaviors are urgency and competitiveness at Vanica. And so I see maybe a candidate's not so good there. And I can literally go and take the job description and the definitions of urgency and competitiveness, pop it into ChatGPT or whatever AI of choice and say, give me some behavior-based interview questions for a person interviewing for this job, and they scored poorly in these 2 behaviors, and like, boom, it's like the perfect interview for this person. So it does help you ask better questions and do a better job buying talent.
That's what it is.
You know?
Yeah,
but
it's
you have
probably
to use
how
it.
you're using it, right?
Yeah,
And
so you have to use it properly. And most people don't know how to use it.
You got to use it right, and using it just to collect more information to do a better job getting to know someone
And
before we make this
screen.
huge hiring decision.
Right.
Well, I'm curious, though, why your CFO clearly doesn't have
It's
a love
extremely expensive.
for TTO. Oh, okay. Okay, it's just a price thing. I was thinking,
I was like, what is it? Yeah.
No, it's really
It's just
expensive.
because it's expensive.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it.
Yep.
But it doesn't, it's an interesting thing because you use it in a really good way. You could use that to just say, no, that's my person based on their profile, then they're the right person. I don't need to do the whole song and dance of the interview. That's the person. And that's where you can really get into some sticky waters.
Well, sometimes it's like, that one client we were talking about, we do disc of the client. I mean, it doesn't deter us from hiring someone because they have a certain style. There's no right or wrong way to be really from a style perspective from disc. But it does kind of sometimes we're like, this would be a nice gap that we don't have on our team. This would be a nice diversity of communication style, right? We don't have someone that's a C or a D or whatever it is, right? And so sometimes it's nice, and plus it gives us a little insight before they get started, so we kind of already know, and we put it kind of, everyone on the team uses it, so we all speak the language, and we kind of know like, okay, this is communication. This is how this person likes to be communicated with. So it's a nice, we can get ahead of it a little bit. So
so interesting. So you guys do this kind of social style disc assessment for the folks that you hire in order to be able to get.
Yeah, and so why don't you talk a little bit about using it for coaching purposes and just team camaraderie and better understanding across team?
Yeah, so I just did a disc 2-day retreat with a company, and it was great. But what we were looking for there was how to communicate better. So this particular company has doubled in size in the last year. So that's huge. Yeah. And so where we were really familial, we knew everyone, and everyone kind of worked really well. All of a sudden, you've doubled the team, and it's like, oh my gosh, who are these people that we're working with? And it was a whole thing. So we decided to go off site and do this. And it was really interesting because we broke it out into the different various teams that this company has. And it was really interesting because every team, there was not one style for all the members of the team, which was pretty amazing.
That
right?
that is really good.
And it was
sometimes
like,
you can get like a very dominant, like the finance team is all C's.
Yeah, and it was it was super interesting. And so we had a lot of great times talking about that, like what's motivating in conversation, what's going to shut you down immediately. And so hopefully they can use that, moving forward. But I think sometimes when you give an assessment, it's like, great, I did this. This was a lot of fun. And then they go home or go back to the office. And so that's where it's like we have to do the second part, the third part, the checking in. Yeah, the live it part.
Yeah, it disc is, it's mostly used like from a communication standpoint. So I think what's nice, I did one recently for an organization in town. And I think once you kind of talk about it and you learn, it helps kind of depersonalize some of the communication gaps that are happening between team members. So it's like, you can stand back and say like, that's just their style, right? That wasn't about me. That was about that, so that's where it helps us kind of depersonalize and navigate the conflict that comes out of communication a little bit better.
Exactly. And navigate the conversation without putting that personal tone. And that's the thing with, knowing social styles. It's not your personality. It's not necessarily, it's your behaviors while at work. Because your behaviors at work could be very different than your real true personality. And not taking things that happen at work, like based on how you respond to stress or based on how you respond to
a
any kind of-
deadline, yeah.
to any kind of situation. That's your work behavior, not you necessarily. And it
One
can be two
thing
different
that we
things.
really talked a lot about at this particular retreat was that once you're in a style, you can't just be like folding your arms and saying, "Oh well, I'm a C. I don't deal with
Right,
mush."
yeah.
And so we really did try to really move that understanding along to the fact that while this is significant and this is meaningful, you still have to work on a team. You still have to talk to all the people on your team. You can't just fold your arms and say you're done, and that's my style.
Yeah,
So
no.
And that's true with any assessment, right?
Yeah.
Like you kind of hit on one of the negative uses of assessments, which is having a predisposed notion that someone's going to show up in a certain way. An S is going to be some, little
Wallflower,
dove.
a little
I love
dove.
that. Oh,
No one would ever
You are a
describe
pretty
me
little
as
bird.
a little dove.
I'm like, that's not you at all.
A little dove.
There is one that's similar, and they're birds. I forget the company that did the birds, but the S is an actual
God.
dove.
Okay. What's
And
the
the D is an eagle.
Oh, okay.
A parrot, and then I forget what
Oh,
the
that
C
other thing.
Okay.
is.
I was
That's
thinking
probably like the
peacock.
But it literally is a dove. That's why I say that. Like
little
some quiet
bird.
dove.
But let's talk about like other misuses of assessments. I almost feel like handing over a candidate or a team member's assessment, full-blown assessment, to either a new people leader or two skip levels above that is not educated in reading these, and just again jumps to conclusions or only reads part of the assessment, or then uses it like in an adverse sort of way for the team. Like what are some use cases on this podcast is called HR Nightmares, right? So we're trying to help people avoid stepping in a big pile of crap. And so misusing assessments can be very dangerous. And so it sounds like the company you've been using has been around for a really long time. So is TTI, so is this. What I love about the TTI is it's validated by the EEOC and Department of Labor, which means that if you make like an adverse decision with a candidate, or you decide not to hire them, and they go back and they say, well, it's because you put me through that weird personality assessment. No, not really, because that's been validated by all these PhD people and lawyers and blah, 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 blah. So I love that. But talk to me about like misuses and HR nightmares with assessments, and like how you plan to avoid sort of like stepping in a big pile of poo.
Oh, good question, Lisa.
You're like, how would I do that?
Well, I mean, I think that it's interesting because we don't do these assessments holistically across our employee population.
Okay.
So it's not like we have this trap to fall into necessarily. The wide variety of folks that work for GE, at least for our business, are not going off and taking this assessment, and then that information is given to the manager, and then the manager makes a call on how they're going to manage this person based on that. Certain people get it. If you are going to be like teaching it, like for example, when I'm teaching the managers this year about social styles, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to take a full-blown assessment and have like a 10-page report out on all the good things about it and all the bad things about it. They're going to get a very high-level review of you're an amiable or you're an expressive, and maybe some bullets about, these are the things that an amiable person likes and needs. This is how an amiable person reacts to stress. They acquiesce. I'm just using that as an example. But that is actually the way they deal with stress, is they acquiesce.
You better check your.
I do
You better
that.
check your style.
You might check
I
your
think
style.
I
you
don't
changed.
think you're like, you're not like me, girl.
It's funny
I know I
because
am. I know what I
always
am.
think,
Pretty
personal
sure
life
you've
versus
evolved.
work life, and I definitely don't do that in work life because I'm not able to, right?
Yeah.
But in my personal life, I will avoid things as
Acquiesce.
long as I can. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that works really well for
Yeah.
me in my personal life. Yeah.
But Lisa, I
Me
don't think
too.
that we have like this big thing trap that we'll fall into just because it's not something that we have everybody take.
Yeah.
The people that will do the training, there was like 5 of us. We took it. We have this big long thing. It tells us exactly who we are and what
Yeah.
our pitfalls are. For our reading benefit, I had to really put on my suit of armor to read.
Yeah.
You're like, me?
What's wrong with me?
I've got things wrong.
Yeah, I felt very seen. But I don't think like this, it's not something that we have as a fabric of our culture that we have to worry about.
You're just using it as
It's
one
more
tool.
development. You're using it as more of a development.
absolutely.
Learn yourself.
And just learn, like, my company is a bunch of engineers, okay?
Yeah.
Like, we're analytical to the hilt. And so
What's their word? What's the analytical?
analytical.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's analytical.
What's their
Analytical.
bird?
Yeah,
A
that's number
condor.
one. And
You're
so
dominating
What
the
are they?
analyticals.
What kind of bird are they?
yeah.
I can't remember.
An
What would an
eagle.
analytical
Bird
bird
are they?
be?
I don't know.
I don't
mean, a
remember. I'm
pigeon?
gonna look it up. I feel I used to have the little book. I got it at some SHRM conference or something.
It's a bird. Oh my God.
I was thinking
Oh.
of pigeon for some reason. I don't know
Oh
why.
gosh.
Like a carrot.
Well, I've got something. I've got a pile of poo talking about assessments.
Okay, let's hear it.
So I have a friend, kind of a, I don't know.
What kind of friend?
Just kind of a friend. No,
She already told
just
us
a
those
friend.
Those kind of
No,
friends are
I'm looking for a friend like that. But anyway. That's the truth. Okay, so I have a friend
Hit
who
her up on
is-
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn if you're single.
Oh my gosh, this becomes a dating website. Okay,
We'll
so
give you. We'll give you. Guys call out like when you cast something out there.
I'm pretty sure I last year announced I was single and looking and available. Yeah,
How'd it
still
go?
am.
how did that go?
I didn't get any.
No
takers.
messages.
I need to probably tell my bird type and maybe it'll work for
Yeah,
me.
you need a D.
Okay, so going back to my pile of poo for assessments, I have a friend, an associate who is looking for a job, right? And there's a local company in our town that's doing this, has put them through a battery of tests on their own time, unpaid. They haven't made a decision if they're going to hire the person yet. She has probably taken, any estimation, probably 6 different assessments. Some were like 40 minutes long to take, and she hasn't heard anything.
Red
So
flag.
FBI.
Red flags.
no,
Red
it's,
flags.
It's like, and it's a company that we all know, which we can maybe talk to you about
Oh, dear.
afterwards.
Oh,
But what
dear.
happens is, I think, so she is hopeful that she's going to get a job. She's just disclosed a lot of personal information about herself in these tests, and nothing has ever come through. And I think that that's really wrong. And it was a waste of her time. She hasn't heard back. It was a waste of her time. It's really personal information that's out there, and I just think it gives a bad name for the company.
Yeah, I mean, I think with it, you know, I mean,
And don't
we're
you
not
think you need to be-
specifically talking about hiring and recruiting
Yeah.
today on
Yeah, I mean,
today's
the
episode,
recruiting experience is
but
terrible.
at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's a giant red flag from a recruiting aspect. And we all need to be cognizant of how much time we're requiring a candidate to take throughout the interview process. And that's from the application process all the way through how many times they have to come in and meet with us, backgrounds. I mean, come
Tests,
on.
6
Yes.
assessments.
It's
Goodness
like,
gracious.
you don't need all that. And if you need all that to make a decision, you have some leaders.
You need to call us
that need
'cause we
some
can
help
help you.
with their decisiveness and what they're truly looking for in candidates.
Also, most people are terrible. They suck at interviewing. And so, like, if you take one thing about interviewing away from this, like, podcast about assessments, it's like eliminate redundancy. You all are asking the same damn questions in every interview. And you got the same information from the resume, the application, the LinkedIn profile, so just cut it out.
Yeah, we can't even get into recruiting right now. It seems like madness out there on the candidate side, and I feel for candidates.
Totally.
But I think if you're a candidate and you're having to do that, you might want to double check before you do that. If you know where you are.
Yeah, I think as a candidate, I understand, because if people are looking for jobs and they need a job, they're going to jump through some hoops. But I think it's really, wrong. And I think candidates have a right to say, I'm not going to spend 2 hours on an assessment. I'm happy to do that once you offer me the position and you send me through this behavioral thing or this DISC profile. I'm happy to do that if that's part of your culture as an organization. But I'm not going to spend, hour after hour on assessment while I'm looking for a job.
It's perfectly acceptable to ask in the initial screening call with the recruiter or the HR person or whatever up front, what does this recruiting process look like?
Yeah.
And how much time am I going to spend? I mean, because most people are working. So that's
Absolutely.
fair.
Right.
And also asking somebody to do something 6 times, that seems a little
6
excessive.
different.
Wild.
6 different times. That
Yeah.
seems excessive.
It was
that
excessive.
would make me feel like they're looking for a particular style.
Like almost a particular person.
It sounds
One
like there's a
person.
lot of
And that, I mean, there's all,
problems
there's all
happening.
kinds
I wanna know who
of
it
problems with that.
you
You
later.
can't be like, I want this person right here, and maybe you're taking it until they fit the mold or something. I mean, it just.
What do you think about IQ tests? I know you love it because you were on Jeopardy, but like everyone else,
You know how it rolls.
I don't think
I
I,
love
would
an
have
IQ
gotten
test.
many jobs if I had been had to go through an IQ test. I don't think anyone would have probably.
I have a
hired me.
lot of common sense.
I would say no to the IQ
An
test.
EQ test, I would nail.
Oh,
An
yeah, I
EQ
nailed that
test,
bad boy,
I would
too.
nail that. IQ,
Yeah.
I mean,
Hundreds
you're
off the
actually
chart.
asking me random.
Yeah.
No,
IQ.
I'm the worst person on the trivia team at all times. I don't remember.
There's a
anything.
trivia event this weekend. You guys can come with me.
Yeah,
Okay.
no.
We'll win.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, coming in with the stunner.
No, I think that that's wrong.
I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how that would measure your ability to do a particular job unless you
You
were
have
going to
1,000
be.
engineers. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I don't know. There's a few different things. So an IQ test in comparison to somebody's work history and educational background and some of the certifications and licenses that they might have. I mean, I'm not going to rely on an IQ test to tell me what that's going to tell me.
Right.
And what if somebody's not a good test taker and they're an amazing engineer, but they just don't do an IQ test very well, and then they lose out? I mean,
My
there's
brother
anything wrong.
was in Mensa. He was brilliant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
wow.
so he took some of my points away from me.
Yeah.
But he was a ding dong. I mean, he was a literal ding dong. He didn't know.
Well, and that
He didn't know that he had Memorial Day off one time. He's
Common
like,
sense.
"Hey, the doors are
Right,
closed.
right.
Don't know what's happening." I'm like, "It's Memorial Day.
This is a major holiday.
You have this day
holiday.
off."
Well, I think there's a big thing. Like IQ doesn't correlate to how will
Job.
they interact with the other 1,000 engineers
Yeah.
in our organization. Will they be able to communicate effectively? There's so many things
is
that
huge.
just that part
Yeah.
doesn't say. And do we need an IQ test if we're hiring an engineer and they need certain certifications or degrees? They have it. I don't also
Right.
need to know what their IQ points are.
Exactly. And that also introduces the concept of performance and what means good performance. What you do, the work you do, how smart you are to be able to do the analysis that an engineer has to do is half of it from a GE culture perspective. The other half is the leadership behaviors
Yeah.
that you have and the how you do the work and how you work in a team and how you make people feel. And we place equal weight on both of them. The
Well, that's good to
IQ
know.
piece is
Yeah.
not bigger
Yeah.
than the way that you can socialize and work within a team. Because if you're leaving dead bodies behind you, but you're getting all your work done because you're the smartest person,
Yeah.
that's still bad.
Right, absolutely.
What about, remember how a while back the Myers-Briggs was a very big one? Do you guys still use that? Do you think
I've never
that's
used
good?
it. I hate it.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't think it's...
The ETMJ. I don't know.
Or the N
That's what they are, right? It's the
Don't like that
initial
one
ones.
either.
Yeah.
I don't know that much about that one. I know some like other ones that are more like, Enneagram, like who we are and like holistic, astrology type things.
Yeah,
And,
I don't know anything
know.
about that.
But
I like things that are validated by the EEOC.
Yeah, this one is like,
Listen,
what kind of flower and
Enneagram is,
bird
like,
are you?
the most ancient one of all of them. Yeah,
It's true,
used in
astrology.
like Greek. Yeah,
It is.
Yeah.
And the sun and the moon and all that
Yes,
stuff too.
they're accurate. They're accurate.
Oh God.
I mean, this was around before the EEOC was ever even
Listen,
thought about.
those are
about-
I'm on
That's
Lisa's side. I must
observation.
be a D.
I'm gonna start putting it on my resume. I am a Virgo, Enneagram 2.
You can
I'm
put it
a
on your
giver,
LinkedIn.
helper.
Maybe you'll
I
get more
know,
DMs.
When the sun is in this position, I tend
Yes,
to be this
when
way.
Mercury's in retrograde, I have a hard time.
When Mercury's in
Mercury
retrograde.
retrograde. That's great.
Okay, do any of you think that there is a silver bullet? And if so, educate me on what, because I'm constantly looking for smart, curious people who can do the job or learn to do the job, be versatile and like move around the organization or move up with the organization as we grow. Like, is there a silver bullet to profiling and buying talent properly? And does it include assessments?
I mean, personally,
God.
I don't think there's a silver bullet. I think you're talking about human beings, and they come in all shapes and sizes, and they're all different, and they all interact with the world differently. They all have different experiences. And how you discover all of those things before you make a hiring decision, I don't know a silver bullet answer for that one.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't think so. But
Do you-
one
do
thing
you-
I
Thank
do
you for
want to know.
validating.
But one
I hope everyone at Vanica listens to this.
There's no way you can tell.
Oh, have you been asked to produce the silver bullet?
No, I'm like, I feel like I'm doing a great job, like sort of having like a multifaceted, all faucets
You
on
have
kind
to
of
try
situation.
a lot of things and figure out what works. And every
That's right.
organization is different. The people, the kind of people that you need to do those jobs are different. It just, again,
Properly,
We're humans. We're all
properly
different.
advertising a role to describe what success will look like and what, you know, what that job really entails. Then like asking the right questions in the interview, doing the assessment as well against the job benchmark, bringing them in,
Being
orienting them
consistent
properly,
about
having
your
a good
process.
training, good
And
performance management.
Having more than one person make the decision too. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the assessment process.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and
Having
people
a team
bring
and a scorecard.
right,
and
people bring different things to the table as they're thinking about, well, what do we want, right?
Yeah.
And so getting
Yeah.
all kinds of information.
I would say the biggest silver bullet I could think of is having leaders that have high EQ and can kind of be able to make an assessment and a good decision based on everything they're seeing throughout that consistent process. And that's where I think we miss a lot
Okay,
of times.
I love that. That's a great tip. If you're going to invest in, and if you're a growing business, you're going to invest in any kind of assessment. There is an EQ assessment available, and Leith HR can get it for you. And we could probably go get ourselves trained up pretty quickly.
There you go.
And facilitate a good workshop and ask
Yeah.
good questions. But if you want to integrate that into your recruiting process, that does seem like a great way to evaluate people leaders at least.
Yeah.
Who are going to make the decisions?
The people
Yeah.
who are
Gonna
making
make
the
the
hiring
decisions.
decisions, that's your silver bullet. is
It's
focusing on
hard
them.
to.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard
enriching
to.
them and making sure that they have what they need
Yeah.
in order to be able the tools in their toolkit to be
Yeah,
able to make
if
good
they're
decisions.
consistent and they're hiring
Yeah.
good people
Because the
and
thing
training
is-
them, they'll be more successful.
The job that you hire somebody for as well may not be the same job as it continues to evolve, right? And a leader's going to get that. A leader's going to understand, oh, this is what I need now. This is how that job could evolve, and the different characteristics that I'm going to need to be able to see and be able to equip that people leader to really have that strategic assessment, both now when we're making a decision and where's this job going, where's this team going, and does this person fit in the future as well. I mean, all that stuff is important.
Absolutely. All right, you heard it here. We like assessments. We don't like them all.
They're not all created equal.
We like them. You can integrate them pre-hire, during the hiring process, during the coaching and performance management process. You could even probably use it as like a post-mortem on a bad hire and like go back to the profile and say like, what didn't we like about this
true.
person?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Lessons learned.
Lessons learned. Any closing thoughts?
I do have a closing thought, actually.
Yeah, please.
And it's something that I learned from that assessment thing that really resonated with me,
Yeah.
and maybe it'll resonate with you. The golden rule is to treat everybody the way that you want to be treated. The platinum rule is to treat everybody the way they want to be treated.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
That's a nice, I'm a
Drop
mom and
the mic.
drop the mic. I'm going to
Good
tell my
job.
kids that.
Good job, Ashley.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
being
thank
here.
you so
Thanks
much.
for having me. This was fun.
Awesome. This is HR Nightmares, and make sure that you go out and follow us on all the socials. We provide a lot of great content on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok. And make sure you hit subscribe and like. We appreciate you tuning in. Thanks. See you next time.